Today I'm doing an audiobook of Goosebumps the Werewolf's Fever Swamp, written by R.L. Stein, read by Thalie Swanson. We moved to Chapter 1. We moved to Florida during Christmas vacation. A week later I heard the frightening howls in the swamp for the first time. Night after night the howls made me sit up in bed. I would hold my breath and wrap my arms around myself to keep from shivering. I would stare out my bedroom window at the chalk-coloured full moon, and I would cry, "What kind of creature makes such a cry?" I would ask myself. "And how close is it? Why does it sound as if it's right outside my window?" The wails rose and fell like police car sirens. They weren't sad or mournful, they were menacing, angry. They sounded to me like a warning. Stay out of the swamp. You do not belong here. When my family first moved to Florida, to our new house at the edge of the swamp, I couldn't wait to explore. I stood in the backyard with my binoculars my dad had given me for my 12th birthday and gazed towards the swamp. Trees with slender white trunks tilted over each other. Their flat, broad leaves appeared to form a roof covering the swamp floor in blue shadow. Behind me, the deer paced uneasily in their wire metal pen. I could hear them pawing the soft, sandy ground, rubbing their antlers against the wall of the pen. Lowering my binoculars, I turned to look at them. The deer were the reasons we had moved to Florida. You see, my dad, Michael F. Tucker, is a scientist who worked for the University of Vermont in Burlington, which, believe me, is a long way from the Florida swamps. Dad got these 6 deer from some country in South America. They're called swamp deer. They're not like regular deer. I mean, they don't look like Bambi. For one thing, their fur is very red, not brown. And their hooves are really big and kind of webbed, I guess, for walking on wet, swampy ground, I guess. Dad wanted to see if these South America swamp deer can survive in Florida. He planned to put little radio transmitters on them and set them free in the swamp, and he'll study how they get along. But when he told us back in Burlington that we were moving to Florida because of the deer, we all totally freaked. We didn't want to move. My sister Emily cried for days. She's 16 and she didn't want to miss her senior year in high school. I didn't want to leave my friends either. But Dad quickly got Mum on his side. Mum is a scientist too. She and Dad work together on a lot of projects. So, of course, she agreed with him. And the two of them tried to persuade Emily and me that this was the chance of a lifetime, that it was going to be a really exciting, an adventure we never forget. So here we are, living in a little white house in a neighbourhood of 4 or 5 other little white houses. We had 6 weird-looking red deer penned up behind the house. The hot Florida sun was beaming down, and an endless swamp stretched beyond our flat, grassy backyard. I turned away from the deer and raised the binoculars to my face. "Oh," I cried out as 2 dark eyes seemed to be staring back at me. I pulled the binoculars away and squinted toward the swamp. In the distance, I saw a large white bird on 2 long, spindly legs. "It's a crane," Emily said. I hadn't realised Emily had stepped up beside me. She was wearing a sleeveless white t-shirt and red denim shorts. My sister is tall and thin and very blonde. She looks a lot like a crane. The bird turned and began high-stepping towards the swamp. "Let's follow it," I said. Emily made her pouting face an expression we'd all seen a lot of since moving down here. "No way, it's too hot." "Oh, come on," I tugged her skinny arm. "Let's do some exploring, check out the swamp." She shook her head, her white blonde ponytail swinging behind her. "I really don't want to," Grady. She adjusted her sunglasses on her nose. "I'm kind of waiting for the mail. Since we're so far from the nearest post offices office, we only get mail 2 times a week. Emily had been spending most of her time waiting for the mail. Waiting for a love letter from Martin, I asked with a grin. She hated when I teased her about Martin, her boyfriend back in Burlington, so I teased her as often as I could. Maybe, she said. She reached out with both hands and messed up my hair. She knows I hate to have my hair messed up. Please, I pleaded. Come on, Emily, just a short walk, very short. Emily, take a short walk with Grady, Dad's voice broke in. We turned to see him inside the deer pen. He had a clipboard in one hand and was going from deer to deer taking notes. Go ahead, he urged my sister. You're not doing anything else. But Dad, Emily could whine with the best of them when she wanted to. Go ahead, Dad insisted. It would be more interested in us than standing around in the heat arguing with him. Emily passed her sunglasses up again, and they kept slipping down her nose. Well, great, I cried. I was really excited. I'd never been in a real swamp before. Let's go, I grabbed my sister's hand and pulled. And Emily reluctantly followed a fretful expression on her face. I have a bad feeling about this, she muttered. My shadow slanted behind me. I hurried towards the low tilting trees. Emily, what could go wrong? I asked. Chapter 2 was hot and wet under the trees. The air felt sticky against my face. The broad palm leaves were so low I could almost reach up and touch them. They nearly blocked out the sun, but shafts of yellow light broke through, beaming down on the swamp floor like spotlights. Scratchy weeds and fern leaves brushed against my bare legs. I wish I'd worn jeans instead of shorts. I kept close to my sister as we made our way along a narrow, winding trail. The binoculars strapped around my chest began to feel heavy against my chest. I should have left them at home, I realised. So noisy here, Emily complained, stepping over a decaying log. She was right. The most surprising thing about the swamp was all the sounds. A bird trilled from somewhere above. Another bird replied with a shrill whistle. Insects twittered loudly all around us. I heard a steady tap, 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 like someone hammering on a woodpecker. Palm leaves crackled as they swayed. Slender tree trunks creaked. My sandals made thump, thump, sounds sinking into marshy ground as I walked. Hey, look, Emily said pointing. She pulled off her dark glasses to see better. We had come to a small oval-shaped pond. The water was dark green, half hidden in shade. Floating on top were white water lilies bending gracefully over flat green lily pads. Pretty, Emily said, brushing the bug off her shoulder. I'm going to come back here with my camera and take pictures of this pond. Look at the great light. I followed her gaze. The near end of the pond was darkened by long shadows, but light slanted down through the trees at the other end, forming what looked like a bright curtain that spilled into still pond water. It is kind of cool, I admitted. I wasn't really into ponds. I was more interested in wildlife. I let Emily admire the pond and water lilies a little longer. Then I headed around the pond and deeper into the swamp. My sandals slapped over the wet ground. Up ahead, a swarm of tiny gnats, thousands of them, danced silently in a shaft of sunlight. Yuck, Emily muttered. I hate gnats. It makes me itchy just to look at them. She scratched her arms. We turned away and we both saw something scamper behind a fallen moss-covered log. Hey, what was that? Emily cried, grabbing an elbow. An alligator, I shouted. A hungry alligator. She uttered a short, frightened cry. I laughed. What's your problem, Em? It was some kind of lizard. She squeezed my arm hard, trying to make me flinch. You're a creep, Grady, she muttered. She scratched her arm some more. It's too itchy in this swamp, she complained. Let's head back. Just a little bit further, I pleaded. No, come on, I really want to get back. He tried to pull me, but I backed out of her grasp. Grady! I turned and started walking away from her deeper into the swamp. I had the tap, tap, tap again directly overhead. The low palm leaves scraped against each other, shifting in the soft, wet breeze. The shrill twittering of insects grew louder. I'm going home and leaving you here, Emily threatened. I ignored her and kept walking. I knew she was bluffing. My sandals crackled over dried, brown palm leaves. Without turning around, I could hear Emily a few steps behind me. Another little lizard scampered across the path just in front of my sandals. It looked like a dark arrow shooting into the underbrush. The ground suddenly sloped upward. We found ourselves climbing a low hill into bright sunlight, a clearing of some sort. Beads of sweat ran down my cheeks. The air was so wet I felt as if I was swimming. At the top of the hill we stopped to look around. Hey, another pond, I cried, running over the fat yellow swamp grass. But this pond looked different. The dark green water wasn't flat and smooth. Leaning over it, I could see that it was murky and thick like split pea soup, made with disgusting gurgling and plopping sounds as if it churned. I leaned down closer to get a better look. It's quicksand, I heard Emily cry in horror, and then two hands shoved me hard from behind. Chapter 3. As I started to fall into bubbling green stew, the same hands grabbed my waist and pulled me back. Emily giggled. Got you, she cried, holding on to me, keeping me from turning around and slugging her. Hey, let go, I cried angrily. You almost pushed me into quicksand. That's not funny. She laughed some more and let me go. It isn't quicksand, dork, he muttered. It's a bog. Huh? I turned to stare into gloopy green water. It's a bog? A peat bog? He repeated impatiently. Don't you know anything? What's a peat bog? I asked, ignoring her insults. Emily the know-it-all. She's always bragging about how she knows everything and I'm a stupid clod. But she gets B's in school and I get A's, so who's the smart one? We learned about this last year when we studied the wetland and rainforest. She replied smugly. The pond is thick because it has peat moss growing in it. The moss grows and grows. It absorbs 25 times its own weight in water. It's gross luck, I said. Why don't you drink some and see how it tastes, she asked. He tried to push me again, but I ducked and skirted away. I'm not thirsty, I muttered. I realised it wasn't too clever, but it was the best reply I could think of. Let's get going, she said, wiping sweat off her forehead with her hands. I'm really hot. Yeah, okay, I reluctantly agreed. This was a pretty neat walk. We turned away from the people and started back down the hill. Hey, look, I cried, pointing to two black shadows floating high above us under a white cloud. Falcons, Emily said, shielding her eye with one hand as she gazed up. I think they're falcons. It's hard to see, they sure are big. We watched them soar out of sight, then we continued down the hill, making our way carefully on the damp, swamp, sandy ground. At the bottom of the hill, back under the deep shade of trees, we stopped to catch our breath. I was really sweating now, but the back of my neck felt hot and itchy. I rubbed it with one hand, but it didn't seem to help. The breeze had stopped, the air felt heavy, nothing moved. Loud cawing sounds made me glance up. Two enormous blackbirds peered down at us from the low branches of a cypress tree. They called again as if telling us to go away. This way, Emily said with a sigh. I followed her, feeling prickly and itchy all over. I wish we had a swimming pool at our new house, I said. I'd jump right in it with my clothes on. We walked for several minutes. The trees grew thicker. The light grew dimmer. The path ended. We had to push our way through tall leafy ferns. I don't think we've been here before, I stammered. I don't think this is the right way. We stared at each other, watching each other's face fill with fright. We both realised we were lost, completely lost. Chapter 4.